I'm Musa Alsulaimani, and I'm a man who lives by gratitude, character, and faith. What's interesting is that it actually makes you think about some of the stuff you never thought about before.
Right.
Because, it's even some of the stuff about, like, gratitude. It's like I have gratitude, and I'm thankful, but what is that? Like, what is that gratitude, and what is it for me, and how do I go about being grateful and things like that?
Right. So how do you go about doing that? Right. I'm saying you start to intend. These are words we say all the time, and don't think, yeah, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that. But most of our gratitude is an accounting. I'm grateful for my shoes. I'm grateful for my shirt. I'm grateful for my house. But for us, we twist it because what we want to get you to look at is an obligation back to your community. Right. And I don't think we see it that way. We're like, oh, so now it's all about gratitude in your community. And now you're really thinking about it, right? Like, yeah, like what does that mean? Now I got to be intentional there. So I think a lot of the stuff we do, everything in our program is around intentionality. Like we put a pause in front of it. Pause. So I was talking about on the way down, where we pause, and then I'm going to hold my gratitude. But really, I'm pausing and then thinking about my gratitude. I'm pausing, thinking about my character. I'm pausing and thinking about my faith. So everything becomes more intentional. And what ended up happening was we give back out to the athletes this high performance capacity to pause.
Right.
Like if you can pause for a second and be like, yo, that dude's hand's down a little low, you're noticing more. I want you to pause and notice. And now you're noticing other things, right? Once you build the ability to pause, my kid grabs the ball, pauses, looks down. He knows when that kid's right foot's up for that split second, he can go the other way, but that's that. And everything in performance sports, when you get high up there, and is about that millisecond.
I think when you pause, you're also in the moment. You become in the moment. If you don't pause, then you're kind of just reactionary and
right. Right. We don't want to always just I think there's a spot where at a certain point I want to pause, get into my moment, and then think of nothing but the performance space. Like I don't want to hold anything. I just want to let my training take over.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called the paradox of control, where you don't control anything but yourself in that moment. So, and for first responders, we talk about it like, I can't change the world. I can only change my relationship to it. When that fire's rocking and rolling and I'm pulling the hose in, I'm not like, hey, fire, you go here, now. So I just got to figure out how. So I want to slow it all down in my head. Like, okay, where do I want to be? Do I want to pull the hose out further? Because now I'm I'm expelling too much energy, because that high pressure hose, when you turn it on, that thing shoots up in your armpit. You need to keep that out here. So the more hose I have now, the more control I have. So anyway, the point is I can now focus on other things that allow me to perform better. Right. I can control myself. Hey, where's my knees? How's my body positioned? I can come back into the moment. Right. So we're here. Right. We're here. So talk to me. I'm going to start down a couple rungs deeper on you. So tell me about your gratitude. So Moose, where do you get your gratitude from? And then how do you think your gratitude, the second part, how do you think that informs your performance?
Yeah, I think for me, my gratitude, I'm a religious person, and I believe in a higher power. So for me, that's where my gratitude comes. And, every night I always, take a second to, pray and think about all the things that I'm thankful for and the things that I have in my life. And, sometimes I think a lot of people think about gratitude as, being thankful for the things we have. But, a lot of times it's also just being thankful for the things we don't have. Because sometimes I think we always think we have the best plan, but when you kind of trust in God's plan, that He has a better plan for you. So sometimes, if something doesn't go, my way,
right?
Some people, gratitude. Sometimes we don't think about gratitude, but for me, gratitude is being thankful for the things no matter what, right? So like if I lose a match, there's an opportunity for me to be grateful. What could I have learned from losing?
Right.
Like God could be preventing me from, a more devastating loss in the future or something like that. So it's always just an opportunity for me to kind of think about, my life and the things that go on, and whether it's sports and in my life, and just take a second to be thankful for it, and also just understand like God has a bigger plan, and whatever that plan, is. I'm ready to rock out with it.
Let's go. All right. That's great. And I think, for us too, it's that's super interesting. Like we're always, what do we have, but what don't we have? That's great. Like I don't think I even think of it like that. But what we talk about in the program is the idea of like failing forward. Like that is it's not what you look at, it's what you see. Is that failure, or is that I just bounce back and now that's a chance for me to become more resilient and learn something from that will help me down the road when maybe that other fight, that's the money fight. You know what I mean? Right. This one was whatever. It's everything counts. So I want to learn from every experience to help me for the next experience, right? That's good stuff. Think about even grateful for the things I don't have. That's pretty dope.
Or even just be grateful for the good and bad. It's not only the good, right? It's not always about the good things that happen, but also the bad things that happen. Right. So you lose, you be grateful. You win, you be grateful. And that always keeps you grounded in whatever the reality is, and allows you to kind of push forward in a responsible way.
Right. So I think it's a quote, life isn't about getting a good hand, but it's about playing a bad hand well. So, we're working down the kids, and it's funny, like I'm growing up, I had to mow the lawn, do all this stuff. I got 4 quarters, and I'd go up, I'd walk 2 miles to the pizza parlor that had a pinball machine in it. I put that first quarter in, and that first ball went right down the middle. I'm like, dang, I only got 3 more left. I got to play it out. But what goes on now with kids is they do this thing. My friend called it the reset generation. Game's not going well. They stand up in the middle of the game. They hit reset. They're not playing that hand out, right? They're not used to seeing, well, maybe that's going to help me by just going a little further. Where can I push myself into the edges? Because that's going to help improve my performance down the line.
Right.
So again, that's really, really powerful stuff you're talking about. So talk to me about your character a little bit. Talk to me about, like, is there someone in your life growing up, coach, mentor, otherwise, that helped influence your character?
Yeah, I've had tons of coaches that really had a huge influence on my life. But I think for me, growing up, my father, he's really built my character from scratch, and who I am as a person has really been forged by my dad and everything that he stands for. So obviously character based, is based in faith, and that's something that my dad taught me since I was a kid, and that's something that kind of has to be passed down to just understanding God and understanding faith, and that teaches you gratitude and things like that. But also my dad just built that sense of hard work, understanding that you have to work for what you want. You have to go out there and be accountable for yourself, right? Work for everything you got, be accountable when things go good, also when things go bad. So and sports, school, whatever it may be, my dad always just pushed me to be the best, and again, accountability.
Right.
So you take accountability for your actions, and that's just kind of propelled me forward, and whether it's sports, whether it's life, whether now relationships and things like that. I think my dad really kind of laid the foundation for my character.
That's great. So that slides now into your performance, right? That ability to count. Talk to me about a little bit more how that character, how that outlook, how that being accountable, how does that slide into your performance?
I think it's everything, right? Like, just taking a second before you go to practice and saying, who am I? Who's gonna show up today? Am I just gonna be someone who just gets by and goes to practice and just figures out a way to get through this hour or 2 hours, whatever it may be? Or am I going to be that guy, right? Am I gonna make a decision to be a stud, right? Be there and be the best version of myself, right? And we all have that decision to make right before practice. We have that decision to make before the match or before a fight or whatever. So I think holding yourself accountable is not just in the big moments, but the little moments. Outside of practice, outside of the games, right? Just those little moments, like. From the moment you wake up, right? We have these little moments to be accountable, and it kind of carries over into those big moments.
Right. It's only a bunch of little moments, right? If you keep stacking those little moments, and life becomes easier when you don't get caught in the big moment, but you're like back into the littler things. I think that, and again, for me, it's the little things, the nuancy things. we were talking about before, like how you hold your hands, or we were talking about basketball. I forget what our conversation the other day was, but it's those little things that you can learn to pick up that can have a big impact on what you're going to do. So talk to me a little bit about away from the ring, away from the octagon. Talk to me about how do you take those little things out? Like, what do you do? How's that character and gratitude follow you out into your community?
Yeah, I think, a lot of times I like to think of it as like, your mind kind of controls your body, and that carries over into sports, right? So just these little conversations you have, and let's say if I have something that has to get done, right? Maybe the easier route would be to kind of hang out a little bit and kind of waste time and then eventually get that done.
Right.
And that's kind of your body, the comfort, arguing with your mind. So you kind of have you have to have a sense of accountability and say, you know what, my mind's in control, my mind's leading the way. And if you kind of, for me, I try to develop that mindset to say, my mind, if it's trained right, it knows what's best for me. So, if it's if in a workout, we're going back to the, performance and things like that. But in a workout, if I have a set and my mind, it's 2 seconds left in the break, my mind's like, all right, 3, 2, 1, go. Your body has to go, right?
Right.
And the same thing outside, right? So if if your parent tells you to do something, and your mind knows you're going to do it anyway, right? But your body's kind of being lethargic.
Right.
That kind of carries over into sports. So like even in like a ring or boxing match or MMA match, my mind knows that maybe throwing 3 jabs right now, I'm exhausted. Throwing 3 jabs right now is the right thing to do. It's going to be the most beneficial thing for me. But my body's like, I want to argue right now. I don't feel comfortable throwing these 3 jabs right now. I want to just rest a little bit, just hang back in my defense. Well, now that opportunity's gone.
Right.
And now if I throw the 3 jabs a millisecond later, I'm getting countered now.
Right.
And the fight could be over.
Right.
So those little decisions you make outside of the ring, outside of sports, your brain tells you to do something, and you do it right away. That kind of starts building up, and then when you're in the ring and your brain says, "Throw them 3 jabs," boom, 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 you go,
Right.
And
that's great.
Those little things is kind of like a training where for me, it's like you're training your body, you're training your mind to be disciplined and be accountable, and that way it transfers over into performance.
That's dope. So in our program, we talk about it like there's the urge to quit and the need to quit, and they're different. And understanding the difference, because you're like, oh, my body was telling me I want to lay back in my defense. That's the urge to quit, but it wasn't really a need. Like I'm still good. I had more in me, but it's your brain, because understanding the mandate of your brain is it doesn't want to expel lots of energy.
Right.
Your brain wants you to hold some of that back, so you kind of got to move past some of the stuff. You're training your brain to kind of, hey, we're going to go push a little further now.
Right.
You know, that's great. So tell me about, is there anybody around you, somebody you box with or somebody you're training with now whose character like influences you?
Yeah, I think a lot of the guys that I train with, Penn State just has a really solid community, based in character and things like that. But, one of my teammates, I would say, Bo Nickel, he's a professional fighter right now, UFC guy. And, he's had a huge influence on my game and things like that. But, he has a lot of the same, principles, like, accountability is big, right? Just holding each other accountable, holding himself accountable. And that stuff's contagious. If I look over and he's, going 110% on his rep, that's going to kind of rub off on me. I'm going to make sure I'm doing the same thing. So, shout out to Bo. He's been, he's kind of, trailblazed the path and, for a lot of the guys in this community to transition into MMA and things like that. He's kind of led that way through his character, through his faith, and through his accountability and everything like that.
Right, that's great. Let's go, Bo. Right, big fans. So gonna go back a little bit for you. Talk to me a little bit about like why did you come? What brought you to Penn State to begin with? Like you've gone anywhere. What brings Moose to Penn State?
It was interesting. Well, before my, boxing and MMA and things like that, I actually played football. I played football in high school.
I didn't know that. In the cut, okay.
Yep, in Philadelphia. So
where at? Northeast?
I played for Simon Gratz.
Oh, Gratz. Okay, let's go. I didn't know that. All right.
Yeah, I played for Simon Gratz, and I was a quarterback. And, I loved it. I played in high school, and that was my thing.
Right.
But so
Okay.
that was all I cared about. And,
Mhm.
and I got a few offers from a few smaller schools and things like that. But at the time, with my ego, I'm like, I'm going big or going home. Like,
Right, right.
PA school, like, Penn State, and we kind of had a connection with one of the coaches, and my coach reached out. So I came here in the summer and tried to do the whole walk-on thing, and came across some injuries and things like that.
Oh,
Fought back. I had another injury in my shoulder, and it just wasn't meant to be. So,
right.
I kind of was here in like a little transition period, and then, I had a choice whether to just kind of sit around and feel sorry for myself,
Right.
or look for something else. And, for me, boxing is actually my first sport, the sport that I grew up doing in Philadelphia. Philadelphia's boxing is a huge sport.
Yeah. Did you come
Probably,
through the PAL?
not the POW, King Sesson Boxing Gym
Okay, there you go.
in Philadelphia, Southwest Philly. So
Shout out to Southwest Philly.
shout out Southwest,
Yeah, it is.
Southwest. But grew up in King Sesson Boxing Gym. That's where I started training and fighting, and then pretty much boxed all the way up until high school when I kind of really started focusing on football. And then came to college, had that transition period, and then now I'm like, I started kind of looking around for different things, and found out that Penn State, collegiate boxing, they had programs around different schools, different military academies, Army, Navy, and Penn State actually had a boxing program. And so I was like, all right, well, this is a chance for me to get back and be
Right.
competitive. So I had to drop a lot of weight. I was a bigger guy playing football, so I had to drop some weight, and that's where my journey took off from there.
Right. And ended with a national championship.
Yeah, so
Let's go.
appreciate it.
Let's go.
So a few years later, won a national title, collegiate national title, and after that, I met Bo, and he was obviously doing his thing with the wrestling. We were kind of the same year, and he approached me with the MMA bit. He was gonna go from wrestling into MMA, and he wanted to kind of work some boxing in, and so we started training a little bit. I started wrestling with him a little bit, and I kind of jokingly said, like, I'll take a fight, like I'll take an MMA fight, something new, like. And we started training. I took a fight, and I beat the guy, and from there I loved it. I got hooked, so that's kind of what I'm doing full time now.
That's great, right? How our journey twists and turns, right?
Right.
That's amazing. Again, there's other plans at work. Sometimes we just don't know what it is, and just kind of falling into that and learning from it and growing from wherever it is. To say, hey, my career ends. I hurt my shoulder. I'm done. You're like, no, I'm going to go back. Hey, what about that boxing thing? And then look where that turns out.
Right.
Look where you're at now. I know for a fact from here, from different members in the community, like you're a striking coach for lots of different folks out there who look to
Right.
you for leadership. I mean, again, isn't it interesting where you end up, and now not only are you doing it, but you're someone who's leading the way for others. You
Right.
know, that's phenomenal. Let's talk about, like, growing up. Was there any, like, even the injury, was there any formative experiences that say, yo, this is why Moose is who he is today? Is there any certain things that happen you go back to and just, yeah, these are the things that help me be me?
I think a big part is where I came from and where I grew up. I came from a pretty rough part of Philadelphia and things like that. So kind of my upbringing is always a fight. It's, it's just whether literally a fight or there's always some sort of fight, and that mentality kind of carried over.
Right.
And I had to kind of channel it in a different way, a more productive way. But I think just that, just coming from where I came from and learning how to fight and defend myself, and kind of keeping that tough mindset kind of carried me, throughout college and,
Right.
business and boxing and things like that. MMA now, coaching.
Right. Well, it was funny because I know you casually, and you're the most, like, chill human being, right? I'm like, look at Moose. You're always like, I watch things move around. You're like, you're just kind of cool with it. And that's great. Like, I would never be like, oh, that's this guy who had a, do you have a catch line? Like, yo, you going to catch his hand, son? Or something comes around in Philly. Yo, you about to catch his hand? What'd you bust on somebody when they came into your space? You bust anything on them?
It's been a while, but probably
something.
can't mention it on this.
Oh, you can't mention? Okay, all right. We'll save that for later.
I'll get fired up and just whatever
Let's go.
whatever comes in my head.
Right.
I'm
So you're not your job, right? Like, the biggest thing we talk about, again, is, you're actually only performing MMA, boxing, or UFC, wherever you're taking it, you're only actually performing once every month, 2 months, really. You know what I mean? Where if you're really active,
if you're even, right?
If you're even, so you're spending most of your time away from it. So really, it's who you are over here that's going to influence who you are when you show up in those critical moments. And I'm just saying, really impressed with you as your character. It's like, man, you carry yourself really well. Like, you're just chill with it. And I think you create a vibe for other people around you of, you put people in that space. You put people in a comfortable space. So, when we talk about connecting to other people in community, that's big. Like, the idea for me is what I look at when I talk to you is, I kept thinking, man, I'd love my kid to be around him. Because you catch a vibe, like, you're an example for other people. Like, I always loved the scripture in Luke when those dudes dropped that cat in through a ceiling to Jesus, right? And he's like, I just picture him looking up, as like, looking at this guy, like, they want to get him saved. He's like, you're saved. Yeah, just the faith of other people.
Right.
The faith of other people. So you showing up, and that's how this thing moves between us. Like, there's that idea of a way the Spirit moves between us and the way your actions can influence others. So, so just kind of staying with this for 1 second. If you had to go back to a younger version of yourself, little Moose, baby Moose, what would you tell little Moose about? Go back was he's throwing hands around Southwest Philly. What would you tell that kid? Any piece of advice you have for him?
I probably have a lot to say to him, but on a different note. But I would just, more productive, I would say, just enjoy yourself. Don't forget to have fun. Obviously, you always kind of look ahead. You're always looking ahead about, these different checkpoints.
Right.
But sometimes you forget to just enjoy the moment, right? Enjoy where you're at.
Right.
Because, I would say, I'm in a good spot right now in terms of I'm happy, but younger you have a lot of different opportunities and a lot of different things that I don't have anymore.
Right.
So, make sure you enjoy those, there's no rush, enjoy yourself, take your time, absorb the moment, and become present with the moment, and as you go, like we have all these phones and things nowadays, it's easy to kind of get absorbed with that. And, before years fly by and, it's like, where did it all go? And, so if you kind of absorb, take in the moment and embrace it, little by little, those things you'll add up and you'll really grow and build something bigger than yourself that you can really be proud of.
Right. That's great. That is great. I feel like just mic dropping it right there. That's some good stuff, right? So, it's funny, like, our family watches like a show, and we're watching this show on Hulu called The Bear.
Okay.
It's about a cook in the kitchen. It's really energetic, and it's a lot about the characters, but the real point is, the one chef had on their wall, every second counts. I like that as a tagline. Every second counts. Because we're always like, I'll catch the next one. I'll catch the next minute. I'll lose myself in these TikToks and this kind of funny thing or that thing. Next, those moments slip by, right? When the world is kind of moving around you, where you can do things to better yourself or do things to better your community. You kind of let those things kind of go by, right? And we don't want to do that. So I think that's important. I just want to come behind that. So for us, we believe living through gratitude, character, and faith is big in empowering those moments. Why do you think that's important for a younger person right now?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I mean, I think it's always really important to have a good base. No matter in boxing, let's say for instance, if your base is out, if your base is all whacked out, everything else is going to be whacked out.
Amen.
That's why, like, when I coach boxing, the first thing, it's always about the base. It's always about just moving left, move right, move left. Oh, now look at your back foot. It's an inch over this way now. You're getting off your base little by little. So it's always checking back with your base. So
I love that. Check back with your base.
Always checking back with your base. So, if I get someone new that's just starting to box, to get in their base, and we don't even worry about their hands, right? We're just building the base, and, you step forward, step back, step forward, step back, step left, oh, look down, look, your base is a little bit off.
That's
And
dope.
so that's just the same thing. It kind of branches out into life. If you don't have that solid base, you start taking a step this way, taking a step this way. Before you know it, your base is gone, and you don't have nothing to really.
Boom! My mind just went like boom. That's great.
You have nothing to stand on really.
Right.
You have no character. You're not really. You don't stand for anything. You're not valuing anything. You're not building anything.
No.
Everything's just kind of scattered. And just like boxing, if you don't have that solid base throughout all your movements, you'll never be able to really move on and start, landing those swaggy combos and things like
Right.
that kind of awes the crowd. And it's just the same thing in life. So
Right.
building that really good base out of faith, character, community. That's all kind of the stepping stones for all the good things to come.
Right. Musa Alsulaimani, a.k.a. Moose, you're killing me today. This is great stuff, right? I appreciate you. Thanks for being a road warrior, and thanks for being with us on the road to resilience, brother.
Thanks
All
for
right?
having me.
Yeah.